The school bus rattled down the uneven road like it always did, but today the noise wasn't from the engine or the metal seats clattering. It was from the laughter, sharp, cruel, merciless laughter that cut deeper than any blade. "Ah, look at her hair. It looks like a bird's nest. Bet she hasn't washed it in months. She looks like a mop." 10-year-old Amina Daniels shrank into herself as 3 older girls closed in around her. Their shadows blocked the sunlight slipping through the cracked bus windows. Her small brown hands clutched her backpack, pink, faded, with one torn strap like everything else she owned. Her hair, her proud, beautiful natural hair, 2 neatly parted afro puffs her mom spent an hour doing that morning, became the center of their attack. The ringleader, Kayla, leaned forward with a pair of scissors she'd stolen from the school art room. "Hold still," she sneered. "Let's help you look normal." The first snip sliced the air. Amina froze. "No, please, don't." But the bus driver didn't hear. Or maybe he did, he simply chose not to care. He kept his eyes on the road, turning the volume on his radio higher. Snip. Snip. Hair drifted to the dirty bus floor like pieces of her dignity raining down. Someone recorded. Someone laughed. Someone mimicked a crying voice, "Oh no, my hair." Amina tried to hide her face, but hands pushed her back upright. "You thought you were cute today, huh?" "Yeah, cute girls can't look like that." She felt the cold metal of the scissors graze her ear and flinched. "Stop moving." Kayla barked. "I said please," Amina whispered. "Please don't." Her voice trembled so softly it drowned under their mockery. Kayla held a chunk of Amina's hair between her fingers like a trophy. "Look. Maybe this can clean my shoes." The entire row erupted. Amina's tears soaked into the front of her uniform. Nobody stepped in. Not the boys in the back. Not the girls next to her. Not even the younger kids who looked away, pretending not to see. But someone did see. Not from inside the bus. From behind it. A sleek black Rolls-Royce Ghost followed the bus at a deliberate pace, matching every curve and stop. Inside sat Damon Hayes, a billionaire in his early 50s, silver-streaked beard, sharp eyes, and a presence that made boardrooms silent. He usually took a different route to his office. Today, something pulled him here. His dashcam system, equipped with a high-zoom AI lens, caught movement inside the bus. A flurry of arms. A girl crying. Hair falling. Chaos. He tapped the screen. It zoomed in with crystal clarity. He saw everything. The scissors. The bullies. The shaking little girl struggling to make herself invisible. Damon leaned forward, jaw tightening. What on earth? The screen zoomed again. He saw the fear in the girl's eyes. The kind of fear he remembered from his own childhood, the fear of being powerless. His heart clenched. As Amina's last puff was snipped unevenly, leaving patches of exposed scalp, she let out a quiet, breaking whimper. A sound no child should ever make. A sound that made Damon's entire soul fill with fire. And as the bus rolled to its next stop, sunlight hit Amina's face just enough to reveal the devastation carved into her expression. Her pain was no longer hidden. Her humiliation was complete. And in that raw, shattering moment, one single thought rose above everything else. No one was going to help her. Not a single person on that bus. Not a single adult in her world. That truth broke open something deep inside her. And it broke something inside Damon too. It was in that moment, the moment when a little black girl sat shaking on a school bus with her hair butchered and her spirit crushed, that the universe decided a stranger would change her entire life. And if this moment breaks your heart, comment where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories. The bus screeched to its next stop. Amina lowered her head, gripping the remains of her hair. Kayla tossed the last tuft onto her lap with a sneer. "You're welcome." The driver opened the doors without even glancing back. And that was when Damon Hayes stepped out of his Rolls-Royce. Slow. Controlled. Purposeful. His eyes never left the broken girl on the bus. His life, wealth, and power were about to collide with hers. And nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. Amina didn't rush off the bus when the doors opened. She couldn't. Her legs felt too weak, her breath too uneven. The world outside looked blurry through the tears she tried to blink away. Kids pushed past her, eager to escape, eager to pretend they hadn't seen anything. She stayed seated, frozen in the middle aisle, clutching the tufts of her hair as if holding them could somehow undo what had just happened. For a moment, she wished she could disappear. Just vanish from this seat, this bus, this whole day. Her small hands trembled. She remembered how her mother had smiled that morning, tired but hopeful. "Turn around, let me see," her mom had said, adjusting the second puff until it sat neatly. "Beautiful. Just like your grandma wore hers. Don't let anyone tell you different." Amina had looked in the mirror and believed it. Now she didn't even want to lift her head. Her scalp burned from where the scissors tugged too close. Her heart hurt worse. A shadow passed across the bus window, Damon Hayes walking toward the bus, though she didn't know him yet. She didn't look up in time to see him. All she saw was her reflection, her hair jagged, uneven, half gone. A reminder of how cruel people could be. Deep inside, memories churned. This wasn't the first time she'd been bullied about her hair. Last year, a boy called it steel wool. In second grade, a girl said touching it was bad luck. Just last week, Kayla threatened to fix it for her one day. Amina had laughed it off because that's what she always did, smile through the hurt, pretend it didn't matter. But today broke something. She slowly lifted her backpack off the seat. It felt heavier than usual, or maybe she felt smaller. She whispered to herself, "Mom's gonna cry when she sees me." Her mother always tried so hard. 2 jobs. One cleaning offices at night and one stocking shelves in the early morning. She barely slept. She barely rested. And still, she always made time to braid Amina's hair with coconut oil and gentle fingers. "Your hair is your crown," her mother would say. Not anymore, Amina thought. Not today. Her eyes stung again. She wished more than anything her dad were still around. He had left when she was 3. Too young to understand then, but old enough now to wonder why she wasn't worth staying for. She remembered his big hands lifting her up, his laugh, the way he called her, "my little sunbeam." Now she felt like a shadow. A kid behind her snickered as he passed by. "You look weird." Amina shrank even smaller. Another kid hesitated near the steps, glanced at her hair, whispered to someone outside, and then ran off. Even the silence people gave her was painful. The avoidance. The turning away. She wished someone, anyone, would say, "Are you okay?" But nobody did. The bus driver finally looked back and saw her sitting there alone. His eyes flicked over her ruined hair, then quickly away. "End of the route," he said flatly. "Time to go." His tone held no sympathy. Amina slowly rose, hair pieces falling from her lap like dead flower petals. She brushed her dress but didn't bother picking them up. What was the point? They weren't hers anymore. When she stepped off the bus, the cold morning breeze hit her scalp. She winced. It felt too exposed. Too raw. She wrapped her arms around herself, not from the cold, but from the hollow ache spreading through her chest. Her school building loomed ahead, and the thought of walking in like this, with everyone staring, laughing, whispering, made her stomach twist. She felt tears building again. But she forced herself forward because that's what she always did. She walked a few steps before stopping. Something tugged at her, an instinct she couldn't explain. Something made her turn her head. That's when she saw him. A tall man, silver at the temples, posture sharp, dressed in a tailored coat. His eyes weren't cold like the other adults she'd seen in moments like this. They weren't dismissive or polite or detached. They were burning. Not with pity. With anger. Anger, for her. Amina didn't know who he was. She didn't know the name Damon Hayes. She didn't know he was one of the richest men in the state. She didn't know he owned the tech company whose billboard she passed every day. All she saw was a grown man looking at her like what happened mattered. Like she mattered. She quickly looked away, embarrassed for anyone to see her like this. She lifted her backpack to shield the left side of her head, where the cut was worst. She sniffed, trying to dry her face with the back of her hand. She forced herself to keep walking. But she didn't know Damon had watched every moment. She didn't know he had already stepped toward her. She didn't know the world she knew was about to shift forever. Because sometimes life sends a stranger in the exact moment you feel the smallest, the quietest, the most invisible you've ever felt. Sometimes the universe refuses to let cruelty have the last word. Amina didn't know it yet. But her life was no longer unraveling. It was about to be rewoven. Damon Hayes did not rush. He moved with the kind of controlled intensity that made people instinctively step aside. Every stride was measured, yet fueled by a rising storm he refused to let explode, at least not yet. His driver, Marcus, stepped out from the Rolls-Royce hurriedly. "Sir. What's wrong? You stopped so suddenly." Damon raised one hand, silencing him without a word. His eyes stayed locked on Amina. The little girl walked with her head down, backpack slung awkwardly over the side of her face, trying desperately to hide the damage. The cold wind lifted the uneven patches of her hair, revealing what the bullies had done. Damon inhaled sharply. He'd seen cruelty before, corporate betrayals, political deception, heartless decisions disguised as business logic. But this? A child being torn apart in plain sight while adults did nothing? This scraped at something buried deep inside him. He approached the school bus first. The driver was stepping off, fumbling with his phone, completely indifferent. "You," Damon said, his voice controlled but edged with ice. The driver froze mid-step. Yes." Damon pointed at the bus. "You saw what happened." The man stiffened. I don't get involved in kids' disputes. School rules. Disputes? Damon repeated slowly. "Is that what you call assault?" The driver swallowed hard. "I don't want trouble." Damon leaned in, close enough for the driver to feel the weight of every word. "You already have trouble." The driver stepped back, face pale. Students walking past slowed down. A few whispered. That's Damon Hayes, right? The tech guy. What's he doing at school? He looks mad." Damon wasn't listening. His attention had shifted back to Amina. She walked like someone carrying invisible weight. Like every step cost her something. He could see her wiping her face with the sleeve of her uniform. He could see how she flinched when someone passed too close. He could see how she didn't want to be seen at all. Something inside him cracked. He started walking toward her. Marcus called out, "Sir, do you want me to?" "No," Damon said without turning back. "This is mine." Amina heard footsteps behind her, strong, steady, purposeful. Her breath stuttered. She didn't want anyone coming close. Not when she looked like this. Not when she felt ruined. She kept her gaze glued to the pavement as the man approached. "Excuse me," Damon said gently. His voice did something to her. Softened her shoulders, just barely. It didn't sound like a teacher scolding her. Or a stranger judging her. Or an adult ignoring her feelings. It sounded safe. But she still didn't lift her head. Damon stopped a few feet away, giving her space. He noticed how small she looked. How she was hugging her backpack like a shield. He lowered his tone even further. I saw what happened. Amina's breath caught, not from fear, but from shame. She whispered, "Please don't look at me." Her voice trembled in the cold morning air. Damon's jaw tightened. He spoke with a gentleness he hadn't used in years. "I'm not here to judge you." Amina kept her eyes down. Everyone saw. "No," he said softly. "Not everyone." She didn't understand what he meant. But something in his voice made her finally, slowly, lift her eyes. She saw him for the first time. Tall. Powerful. Sharp suit. Silver beard. Eyes that looked like they could see straight into someone's soul. But not in a frightening way. In a way that made her feel noticed. She blinked, startled. Who are you?" Damon hesitated. He could say billionaire. He could say CEO. He could say the man who watched every second. But none of that mattered right now. "I'm someone who wants to make sure you're okay." Amina swallowed. No adult had said that to her in a long time. Maybe ever. Behind them, a few older kids snickered, pretending not to stare. Damon heard them. He didn't turn, but his shoulders stiffened. He knelt down, slowly, to be at Amina's level. Her eyes widened. Nobody important ever knelt for her. "I'm Damon," he said softly. "Can I walk with you for a moment?" Amina hesitated. The last adult she trusted left her life years ago. But something in Damon felt different. Safe. Warm. Protective. She nodded. And just like that, a billionaire who moved nations, walked alongside a little girl whose world had just fallen apart. He didn't know it yet. But she wasn't the only one who needed saving. Amina kept her head lowered as she walked beside Damon, but her steps were different now, less frantic, less hollow. She didn't understand why, but something about his presence made the cold morning feel a little warmer. He didn't crowd her. He didn't rush her. He didn't ask her to look up. He simply walked at her pace. When they reached a quieter corner of the school courtyard, Amina finally spoke in a small voice, barely above a whisper. "Are you from the school?" "No," Damon said gently. "Are you a teacher?" "No." Her brows furrowed. "Are you someone's dad?" Damon hesitated. It had been years since anyone asked him something so simple. "No, not that either." She rubbed her sleeve over her face again. "Then, why did you follow me?" "Because," he said, "you looked like you needed someone in your corner." The words hit her like an unexpected gust of wind. She stared down at her shoes, twisting one foot over the other. Nobody had ever said anything like that to her. "You're not mad at me?" she asked, voice trembling. "Why would I be?" "Because I look," she couldn't finish. Her throat closed up. Damon inhaled slowly. "You look like a child who was hurt. And that is never your fault." Amina's lip quivered. She bit down hard, trying not to cry again. She studied him through blurry eyes. He didn't look like someone who would mock her. He didn't look like someone who would walk away because her hair wasn't neat anymore. He didn't look like someone who'd say she was overreacting. He looked steady. Like a wall that wouldn't move if the whole world pushed against it. "Did you," she paused, voice fragile. "Did you see it happen?" Damon didn't want to overwhelm her. But lying wasn't an option. "Yes," he said quietly. Amina's shoulders shook. She hid her face. Please don't tell anyone. Everyone already laughs at me. Damon felt something sharp twist in his chest. That sentence, that instinct to protect the people who hurt her instead of herself, was far too familiar. Amina, he said softly, you don't deserve to be laughed at. But they always do, she whispered. He opened his mouth, then paused, choosing his words with care. When I was your age, he said, people laughed at me too. Amina blinked, startled. You. He smiled faintly. Me. But, you look like you're rich. Her honesty was disarming. Damon actually let out a small, sad chuckle. I wasn't always. She stared at him a little longer, really looked at him, and in that moment, something shifted inside her. She didn't see his expensive coat. She didn't see his polished shoes. She didn't see the quiet authority he carried. She saw someone who wasn't going to leave. For the first time today, she felt like she wasn't alone. Can I stand by you for a little? She asked quietly. Damon's heart gave a strange, unfamiliar tug. For as long as you need. Amina nodded and took a tiny step closer, not enough to touch him, but enough to feel protected by the space between them. She took a shaky breath. My mom told me, she told me if anything bad ever happened, to find a grown-up who looks kind. And, he asked softly. Amina wiped her cheek again. And you looked kind. Her words cracked something open in him. Damon felt the breath leave his lungs. Because she didn't know who he was. She didn't know he had power. She didn't know he had money. She didn't know he had influence. She saw none of that. She saw kindness. And she chose him. Damon cleared his throat, fighting the emotion tightening it. I'm glad you did. Just then, commotion erupted near the school entrance. The bullies, Kayla and her friends, were walking in, laughing loudly, retelling the story of cutting her hair like it was some kind of joke. Amina froze. Her small hand clutched Damon's sleeve instinctively. Before she realized what she'd done. I'm sorry, she stammered, pulling back. But Damon gently placed his hand near her shoulder, not touching her, just letting her know he was still there. You don't have to apologize, he said quietly. The bullies' laughter grew louder. Teachers looked confused, unsure what was happening. A few students pulled out their phones again. Amina's breathing quickened. Do you want me to stay with you? Damon asked. Amina hesitated only a second before whispering. Please, don't leave me. She didn't know who he was. She didn't know what he could do. She didn't know her life was about to explode into chaos and justice. All she knew was this. In her broken moment, she found someone who felt like a protector. And Damon Hayes, once a boy who had nobody, felt something awaken inside him that he thought he'd buried long ago. The instinct to protect a child the world had failed. Amina stood partly behind Damon, gripping the edge of her backpack like a lifeline. The courtyard that was usually loud and chaotic suddenly felt hostile, every whisper, every stare, every pointed finger landing like a blow she wasn't strong enough to endure alone. But today, she wasn't alone. Kayla and her two friends strutted toward the entrance, loud and animated, reenacting the moment they cut Amina's hair. One of them mimicked holding scissors. Another pretended to cry dramatically, mocking Amina's trembling voice. And then she was like, no please. And then snip snip. Like giving a dog a haircut. She should thank us, we made her look better. They burst into laughter so vicious that even some nearby students winced. Amina's breath hitched. She stepped further behind Damon, hiding her face completely now. Damon watched everything, every sneer, every laugh, every unnecessary retelling of the torment. His jaw tightened with each second. Behind him, Amina whispered, they're never going to stop. Damon lowered his voice. They will. How do you know? she asked, voice shaking. Because I'm here now. Before Amina could respond, Kayla finally noticed Damon's imposing figure, and Amina standing behind him. She paused mid-laugh. Oh look, she found herself a bodyguard, Kayla scoffed. What's wrong, Amina? You can't walk into school without hiding behind a stranger. Her friends giggled, but their voices wavered when Damon turned to face them fully. Kayla crossed her arms, chin raised in fake confidence. Who even are you? Her uncle or something? No, Damon replied coolly. I'm the man who watched you assault her. Kayla blinked. Her friends exchanged uncertain glances. What are you talking about? One muttered. Damon stepped closer, slow, deliberate. He did not raise his voice. He didn't need to. I saw everything you did on that bus. Every laugh. Every insult. Every cut of those scissors. Kayla's smirk faltered. You spying on us or something? Spying? Damon repeated. No. I have a dashcam. It recorded the entire incident in high resolution. A ripple spread through the courtyard. Phones lowered. Whispers stopped. Even the teachers near the doors looked suddenly alert. Kayla scoffed, but her bravado cracked. You can't prove anything. I can, Damon said sharply. And I will. Amina stood there, heart thudding. She'd never heard an adult defend her like this. Never heard anyone speak to her bullies in a tone that made them uncomfortable. One of the teachers finally approached, a woman in her 30s with a clipboard clutched too tightly. Sir, what seems to be the issue here? Damon turned to her. Are you a staff member? Why yes, I'm Ms. Turner, the assistant principal. Good, Damon said. Then I need you to be aware that this child, he placed a steady hand near Amina's shoulder, was assaulted on the school bus this morning. Ms. Turner's eyes widened as she finally noticed Amina's butchered hair. Oh my. Amina, honey, what happened? Amina swallowed hard. They cut my hair. Kayla stepped forward quickly, words tumbling out defensively. She's lying. She told us to help her fix it. She was begging for it. A gasp rippled through the small crowd gathering. Amina's eyes widened. That's not true. Damon raised a hand toward Amina. You don't have to defend yourself. Then he turned back to Kayla. Lying will not help you. Kayla glared up at him. You can't talk to me like that. You're not my dad. No, Damon said. I'm worse. The courtyard went silent. Kayla's mouth snapped shut. Ms. Turner cleared her throat nervously. Sir, if you have evidence. I do, Damon said. And I'll be sharing it with the school district, the board, and the authorities. Kayla's friends started stepping back quietly, but Damon's eyes snapped toward them too. You two were part of it as well. Don't think walking away erases your actions. One of them stuttered, we didn't even do anything. You laughed, Damon said coldly. You encouraged it. You filmed it. That is involvement. Ms. Turner raised a hand. Okay, let's all calm down. No, Damon cut in, voice firm. What happened to Amina was not a misunderstanding. It was cruelty. And what I find even more concerning is that the adults responsible for her safety, the driver included, did nothing. The bus driver, who had been hoping to slip away unseen, froze like a statue. Ms. Turner's face flushed red. I wasn't aware. That's the problem, Damon said with razor precision. Nobody was aware. Nobody cared. Except the ones who hurt her. Amina's breathing grew uneven again. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at the ground. All this attention, this confrontation, felt overwhelming. And yet, for the first time, it wasn't aimed against her. Damon noticed her trembling. He lowered himself to her level once again, blocking the view of the crowd behind him so she could breathe. Amina, he said softly, none of this is your fault. Do you hear me? Her lips parted, voice barely audible. I didn't want trouble. You didn't cause it, Damon said. They did. She nodded weakly, tears spilling over. Behind them, the bullies muttered, teachers whispered, and the courtyard buzzed with tension, but none of that mattered. What mattered was the shift happening right there, in that small pocket of space between a broken little girl and a man who refused to let the world crush her again. The public cruelty had reached its height. And Damon Hayes, usually calm, private, and distant, felt the last thread of his restraint snap. He was done watching. He was done waiting. He was done being polite. Something fierce lit behind his eyes. And that was the moment. The moment the billionaire fully snapped into protector mode. Damon rose slowly from where he'd knelt beside Amina, and when he stood to his full height, his entire presence changed. Moments ago, he'd been gentle, calm, measured. Now he radiated a controlled fury that made even the teachers step back. The billionaire who closed multi-million-dollar deals with a single sentence. The man whose voice could silence entire boardrooms. The leader who once fired an entire executive team for mistreating interns. That version of Damon Hayes stepped forward. He turned to face the assistant principal, the bullies, the onlooking students, and the bus driver, his expression sharp as a blade. Enough, he said. The courtyard fell into absolute silence. You allowed a child to be abused, Damon said, voice ice cold. Not one adult stepped in. Not one person said a word. Not even the driver whose the only job, was to get these children to school safely. The driver stumbled back defensively. I didn't know they were actually cutting her hair. You watched them hold scissors, Damon snapped. And you did nothing. Ms. Turner swallowed. Sir, please, let's discuss this inside. No, Damon said. We will discuss it where it happened. Out here. In front of every student who watched and thought cruelty was normal. Students shifted uneasily. Some lowered their phones. Others quickly hid them. Kayla crossed her arms, but her smirk was gone. Why are you making it a big deal? It's just hair. A sound escaped Amina, small, hurt, like her spirit flinched. Damon's head whipped toward Kayla so fast she jolted. You cut her identity, Damon said. Her pride. Her autonomy. Her safety. That is not just hair. That is violence. One of the bully's parents, who had been walking her son onto the campus, stopped. Excuse me, who are you to tell our kids what violence is? Damon turned to face her fully. I am the man, he said evenly, who watched your child torment another human being. The woman bristled. My daughter would never. She did, Damon said. And I have it all recorded. More parents had begun gathering, drawn in by the tension. Whispers rippled through the group. He has a recording. He saw the whole thing. Wait, is that Damon Hayes? The billionaire? The bullies finally looked worried. Ms. Turner rubbed her temples. Sir, Mr. Hayes, please, let us handle school discipline. We have procedures. Damon cut her off sharply. Your procedures have failed her. Your staff failed her. If I hadn't been driving behind that bus, this would have been swept under the rug like every other incident. Ms. Turner's cheeks reddened, but she had no argument. Amina watched him silently from behind, eyes wide. She'd never seen someone speak with such absolute certainty, like there was no universe where she deserved to be hurt. The crowd kept growing. The tension rising. Damon took a step forward, positioning himself between Amina and everyone else, making her invisible to the chaos. She is a child, he said, voice deepening. A little girl who got on a school bus expecting safety. She instead endured humiliation, pain, and targeted cruelty. And every adult around her let it happen. He pointed at the driver. You will be held accountable. He turned to Ms. Turner. You will notify the district today, or I will. He faced the bullies and their gathering parents. And as for these children, if you think I'm going to stand here and watch them escape consequences, think again. One of the bullies' fathers, big-framed, loud-mouthed, stepped forward. Hey! Don't talk to my kid like that. You think just because you're rich you can boss everyone around? Damon stepped closer, unflinching. No, he said coolly. I think I can boss people around because I'm right. Gasps scattered across the courtyard. The father blinked, stunned. And because, Damon continued, your children caused real harm. Emotional harm. Psychological harm. Do you understand the weight of that? Or do you only care when something happens to your own family? The man sputtered, voice rising. Who do you think you are? Damon didn't blink. Someone who's no longer staying silent. The father opened his mouth again, but Damon held up one hand. You want to argue with me? Damon asked quietly. Fine. But do it knowing I have video proof. And the district. And the school board. And the police. And every news outlet in this city who would love to talk about a little girl whose hair was cut by bullies while adults watched. Several parents stiffened. A few teachers paled. Even the bullies looked terrified now. Damon took a slow breath, grounding himself. It ends today, he said. This culture of pretending children aren't being hurt, ends today. Behind him, Amina whispered, You're really doing all that? For me. Damon glanced over his shoulder at her, his expression softening. Yes, he said. For you. Amina swallowed hard. Why? Damon lowered his voice, just for her. Because someone should have protected you long before I showed up. Her eyes glistened. She looked up at him like he was something she'd never seen before. A storm shielding instead of striking. And Damon Hayes, who had spent years shielding only himself, felt a new, unfamiliar certainty rise inside him. He wasn't leaving this child's side. Not now. Not ever. The courtyard felt like a courtroom now, students forming a loose circle, teachers whispering nervously, parents gathering with confusion, frustration, or defensiveness written across their faces. And in the center of it all stood Damon Hayes and Amina Daniels. A billionaire and a broken little girl. A storm and a spark. Damon took one step forward, commanding the scene without raising his voice. We are going to address this right here, right now. Ms. Turner, flustered and overwhelmed, tried again. Sir, Mr. Hayes, this really should be handled privately. Inside the office. Damon shook his head. Bullying doesn't happen privately. Humiliation didn't happen privately. The cruelty was public. He motioned around the courtyard. So the accountability will be too. Kayla's mother pushed her way through the crowd, heels clacking, perfume sharp, hair perfectly curled. She grabbed her daughter's arm with a dramatic sigh. What is going on? Kayla, why are people staring at you like that? Kayla pointed quickly at Amina. Mom, she's lying. She told us to help her fix her hair and... That's enough, Damon said, not giving Kayla a single inch to spin her story. Your daughter did not help her. She attacked her. Kayla's mother scoffed. Attacked? Oh please. They were probably just playing. Girls play with hair, that's what they do. A sound escaped Amina, a soft, devastated inhale. Damon's eyes snapped toward Kayla's mother. Do you think this is a joke? The woman adjusted her handbag. I think you're making something small into a spectacle. Spectacle. Damon repeated the word in his head before speaking it aloud. A 10-year-old child was forcibly held while her hair was cut off. That is not a spectacle. That is cruelty. Kayla's mother flicked her wrist dismissively. It grows back. Damon stepped closer, voice low with restrained fire. That is not the point. She's just being sensitive, the woman insisted. Kids tease. It's normal. Damon's expression hardened. Bullying is not normal. Trauma is not normal. And your daughter's behavior is not teasing, it's violent. Students murmured. Some nodded. Some looked scared. Kayla stared at the ground now, her confidence eroding with each sentence. Another bully's parent joined in, this one a man in a wrinkled polo shirt, defensive from the moment he arrived. My daughter said she didn't do anything. You can't accuse kids without proof. Damon didn't flinch. I have proof. The courtyard stiffened. Show it, the father demanded. Let's see this so-called evidence. Damon reached for his phone but paused, gaze sweeping across the gathering of students. Before I do, I want to ask something. Not to the adults. To the children who watched. He turned and addressed the crowd. Who saw what happened? Silence. Dozens looked at their shoes. A few shifted uncomfortably. Anyone? Damon pressed. Anyone willing to tell the truth? Finally, a small voice. A boy near the back lifted his hand slightly. I saw it. Kayla's eyes widened. The boy stepped forward hesitantly. They held Amina down. They laughed while they cut her hair. A heavier silence spread. Another student raised her hand. I saw too. Kayla said she wanted to make Amina look less like a puffball. Someone else added, they recorded it. They thought it was funny. A fourth student, then a fifth, then a sixth. One by one, the truth spilled out like water breaking through a weakened dam. Kayla's mother turned pale. Kayla, you told me. Kayla snapped, panic rising. They're lying. Everyone is lying. Damon finally held up his phone. No one is lying. He tapped the screen. A still frame filled the display, a zoomed, crystal-clear image from his dashcam. Amina crying. Kayla holding scissors. Hair falling. Gasps rippled through the courtyard. Ms. Turner covered her mouth. Teachers exchanged horrified glances. Parents stiffened in silent shock. Kayla's mother stared at the screen as if it had physically struck her. Kayla. Oh my God. Kayla's face crumpled, her bravado collapsing. Mom, I didn't mean to. Her mother's voice shifted from defensive to furious. How could you do this? Damon lowered the phone and looked at the assistant principal. This is not a minor issue, he said. This is assault. And your school bears responsibility. Ms. Turner stammered, "We will take immediate action. I promise. This is unacceptable." It was unacceptable the moment it happened, Damon replied. Amina watched the adults argue around her, confusion and fear twisting in her stomach. She tugged at Damon's sleeve quietly. Can I go home?" she whispered. The question silenced him. He looked down at her, her eyes red, her hair uneven and exposed, her shoulders small and trembling. That single sentence shattered whatever restraint he had left. He crouched down again, gently. Yes. You won't stay here another minute. Amina nodded, lips trembling. But Kayla's father wasn't done. You can't take her home. She's a student here. This is school property. Damon stood slowly, towering, unshakable. Try to stop me. The man stepped back instinctively. Damon turned to Ms. Turner. Call her mother. now. Ms. Turner nodded rapidly. Yes, yes, of course. And until her mother arrives, Damon continued, she stays with me. Away from the kids who hurt her. Away from the adults who failed her. Ms. Turner swallowed. You're right. I understand. Kayla's mother pulled her daughter aside, scolding her fiercely in hushed, frantic whispers. Other parents began demanding answers, some outraged at the bullies, others terrified their children might be next. Teachers scrambled to organize the crowd. Students whispered to each other, some shaken, some relieved someone finally said the things adults never said out loud. Amid the chaos, Amina stayed close to Damon, gripping the edge of his sleeve. She felt small. Uncertain. Embarrassed by all the attention. But for the first time today, she felt safe. Damon felt her trembling. You're not in trouble, he whispered. You didn't do anything wrong. She nodded slowly. The courtyard continued buzzing with conflict, parents arguing, teachers apologizing, bullies trying to explain themselves. But none of it mattered anymore. Because this wasn't about the crowd. It was about one little girl. And the man who had become her shield. Damon looked down at her with a fierce gentleness. Amina, he said quietly, I'm not going anywhere. She blinked up at him, tears soft on her lashes. Promise? I promise. The sun shifted overhead, casting long shadows across the courtyard. Public cruelty had erupted. Public confrontation had taken over. But from its ashes, a new bond began to form, one that neither of them saw coming. Damon guided Amina away from the gathering crowd, away from the arguing parents and overwhelmed teachers, away from the courtyard that felt more like a battleground than a school. They settled under a large oak tree at the far end of the campus, quiet, shaded, a place where Amina could finally breathe. Damon stood for a moment, watching her carefully. Amina sat on the bench with her legs pulled in, her backpack still clutched protectively against her chest. Her ruined hair peeked out unevenly, strands lifting gently in the breeze. She looked so small. So fragile. So wounded. Damon lowered himself onto the bench beside her but gave her space. Amina, he said softly, you're safe here. She didn't look at him at first. Instead, she stared down at her shoes, tears dripping silently onto her knees. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Amina whispered, I didn't want to cause trouble. You didn't, Damon said immediately. But everyone was yelling, and looking at me, and the parents were mad, her voice cracked. They think I'm lying. No, Damon said firmly. They think their children couldn't possibly do something cruel. That's not the same thing. Amina sniffed, wiping her face with her sleeve. It's always like that. When kids do something to me, adults don't believe it. Or they say I'm being sensitive. Or they say I should ignore it. Damon's hands tightened slightly. That should never be your burden. Amina looked up at him then, eyes swollen, face streaked with tears. Why did you help me? The question stunned him, though he'd been expecting it. He exhaled slowly. Because I know what it feels like when nobody helps. Amina blinked, surprised. Damon continued, eyes distant. When I was your age, about 10. I used to walk to school alone. Kids teased me about my clothes. About where I lived. They pushed me around because I was quiet. And every time something happened, adults told me to toughen up or ignore them. Amina tilted her head, studying him. You. But you're strong. Damon shook his head with a sad smile. I wasn't always. I used to hide in the bathroom during recess just to avoid being seen. Amina's voice softened. Me too. Her admission hung in the air like a fragile thread. Damon turned slightly toward her. Amina, what they did to you today, His voice broke for a moment before he steadied it. That would break anyone. But you didn't fall apart. Not really. Amina frowned. I cried. Crying is not falling apart, Damon said gently. Crying means you're human. Strength doesn't mean not crying. It means standing back up even when crying. She stared at him, eyes wide, thoughtful. He added, and the fact that you're still sitting here, talking, breathing, even after all that, that makes you one of the strongest people I've ever met. Amina's lips parted in quiet awe. You really think that? I know that, he said. Amina hugged her backpack a little closer. I try to be good. My mom says to always be kind. She says not everyone will like me, but that's okay. She says I'm enough. She's right, Damon murmured. But sometimes, Amina whispered, it feels like nobody sees me. The sentence tore through Damon. He felt his throat tighten as he looked at her, this trembling girl with a bruised spirit and a heart far too gentle for the world she inhabited. I see you, he said quietly. Amina's eyes filled instantly. She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. Damon waited. He didn't touch her. Didn't rush her. Didn't tell her to be strong. He simply sat there, silent and present, letting her unravel safely for the first time all day. After a while, she wiped her eyes and peeked up again. Are you mad at me for crying? Never, Damon said. I am proud of you for letting yourself feel. She blinked. Nobody's ever said that to me. Damon's voice softened. You deserve to hear it. Another breeze blew gently through the oak tree, rustling the leaves above them. Amina took a deep breath, her shoulders settling a little. She said hesitantly, is it okay if I sit closer? Damon smiled softly and nodded. Of course. Amina scooted over, just enough that her arm brushed his. She exhaled shakily, as if the closeness itself grounded her. After a moment, she whispered, when I saw you walk toward me earlier. I thought you were an angel. Damon blinked, taken aback. An angel? She nodded. Your jacket was shining in the sun. And you were walking like you were coming to help me. Nobody's ever walked toward me like that. Something deep in Damon's chest twisted. I'm not an angel, Amina, he said quietly. Just someone who couldn't watch a little girl be hurt. Amina tilted her head. But, you felt like a protector. Protector. The word resonated inside him. He hadn't protected anyone in years, not since the people he loved slipped away from him. Not since he built walls around his heart to survive the loneliness of success. But now, sitting beside this small, broken child, he felt something wake up inside him. Something old. Something fierce. Something tender. Amina, he said, I will protect you. Today and as long as you need me. Her eyes shimmered. And for the first time since that horrible bus ride, she smiled. A small smile. A fragile smile. But a real one. The quiet beneath the oak tree didn't last long. Footsteps approached, quick, uneven, frantic. Damon turned first, and Amina followed his gaze. Her mother, Lydia Daniels, rushed across the courtyard, still wearing her grocery store uniform, name tag crooked, keys bouncing at her side. Her face was stricken with worry, breath trembling as if she'd run the entire way from the parking lot. Amina, she cried, voice cracking as she spotted her daughter. Amina jumped off the bench and ran into her mother's arms. Lydia dropped to her knees and held her so tight it was as if she feared Amina would disappear. Mama. Amina whispered, voice small, muffled against her mother's chest. Lydia pushed her back gently to look at her, really look at her. And when her eyes finally landed on Amina's hair, her breath caught. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh, oh my baby. Amina's eyes filled again. Mama, I didn't fight them. I was scared. Lydia touched the uneven patches of hair with trembling fingers, careful not to hurt her. Tears streamed down her cheeks, falling onto Amina's uniform. Who did this to you? Lydia whispered, voice shaking with a mixture of heartbreak and fury. Amina's lips trembled. The girls on the bus. They. Lydia hugged her again, rocking her slightly. No, you're okay, baby. You're okay. But her voice broke. She was not okay. None of this was okay. Damon stepped forward, clearing his throat quietly so he wouldn't startle her. Mrs. Daniels, he said softly. Lydia lifted her head. She hadn't even realized someone else was there. Tears blurred her vision, but when she finally looked up at Damon, his expensive coat, his composed stance, embarrassment flashed across her face. She wiped her cheeks quickly, trying to compose herself. I'm sorry, she stammered. I didn't mean to, she swallowed hard. Amina's teacher called and said something happened. I came as fast as I could. I didn't even get to finish my shift. I'm so sorry if I'm causing a scene. Damon shook his head gently. You have nothing to apologize for. Lydia blinked at him. She recognized him now, everyone in the state knew Damon Hayes when they saw him. But she couldn't process why he was standing with her daughter. I'm Damon, he said. I was driving behind the bus this morning. I witnessed everything. Lydia's eyes widened. You saw it? I did, Damon said quietly. And I intervened. Her breath trembled. You helped her? Yes, he nodded. And I'm not going anywhere. Lydia looked between him and her daughter, struggling to make sense of the picture. A billionaire, kneeling emotionally before her child. Protecting her. Speaking softly. Standing firmly. It didn't make sense, yet it made perfect sense. She brushed Amina's cheek. Baby, why didn't you tell anyone? Why didn't you call me? I was scared, Amina whispered. And everyone was yelling, and I didn't want to make anyone mad. Oh sweetheart, Lydia kissed her forehead. You could never make me mad by needing help. Amina leaned into her mother, throat tight with emotion. Damon watched them quietly, something warm tugging inside him. After a moment, Lydia stood, wiping her face again. She looked at Damon, nervous, apologetic, self-conscious. Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry you had to see my daughter like this. I try my best. I try to raise her right. I swear I do. But life's been hard. Her voice cracked. She hated crying in front of strangers. Especially someone like him. Damon stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. Mrs. Daniels, none of this is a reflection of your parenting. Your daughter is bright, kind, and brave. What happened today was the fault of children who have never been taught compassion, and adults who should have intervened but didn't. Lydia's eyes shimmered. Thank you, for saying that. And for being here, she added quietly. Most people wouldn't have stopped. They would have looked away. Damon shook his head. I couldn't look away. Amina tugged her mother's hand, pointing up at Damon. Mama, he protected me. Lydia pressed her lips together, overwhelmed. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Truly. Damon lowered his voice. You don't owe me thanks. You just focus on your daughter. Lydia brushed her fingers through what was left of Amina's hair, her hands trembling again. We need to get you home, baby. I can't let you stay like this. I'll fix it, okay? Amina nodded tearfully. Then he said, may I walk you both to your car? Lydia hesitated, unaccustomed to help, especially from someone important. You You really don't have to. I want to, Damon said simply. There was no argument left. Lydia nodded slowly. Amina slipped her hand into her mother's left hand. And her small fingers reached for Damon's sleeve with the right. He looked down, surprised. She whispered, "Don't leave yet, please." Damon's expression softened. "I'm not leaving," he said quietly. And for the first time that day, Amina believed it. Lydia, Amina, and Damon walked slowly toward the school parking lot. Parents stared. Teachers whispered. But for the first time all day, Amina didn't hear any of it. Because she wasn't alone. She held on to her mother's hand with one small palm. And with the other, she kept her fingers gently hooked around Damon's sleeve, afraid that if she let go, everything safe around her would disappear. The walk felt long but strangely comforting. Damon kept a protective pace beside them, his presence strong but never overbearing. Lydia kept wiping her eyes, still shaken, still trying to wrap her mind around everything. When they reached the car, an older silver sedan with a dented bumper, Lydia placed a hand over her heart and took a long, shaky breath. "Amina, get in, baby. I'll be right there." Amina obeyed, climbing gently into the back seat. Lydia turned to Damon, voice low. "Mr. Hayes. I don't know how to express how grateful I am." "You don't need to," Damon said. But Lydia shook her head. "No. I do. No one has ever stepped in like that for my daughter." She looked down, ashamed. "I work so much. 2 jobs. Sometimes I feel like I'm not enough." Damon lowered his voice. "You are enough. You're doing what you have to do to keep her safe and fed and loved. That makes you more than enough." Tears welled in Lydia's eyes again. "Thank you." Then she asked the question she hadn't wanted to ask. "Why were you there? Why help her? You don't even know us." Damon paused, looking through the window at Amina's reflection staring back at him. "I know what it feels like to be small," he said quietly. "To be hurt. To be ignored." He met Lydia's eyes. "No child should go through that. Not ever. But especially not yours." Lydia nodded slowly. "Please," she whispered, "keep checking on her, if you want to." "I will," Damon said without hesitation. And he meant it. As Lydia got into the car and drove away, Damon stood there watching the little silver sedan disappear down the road, feeling something shift inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. A purpose that wasn't tied to money. A responsibility that didn't feel heavy. A connection that didn't scare him. A child who softened the parts of him he thought were gone. Amina didn't go to school the next day. Or the next. Lydia kept her home, calling in sick. She braided headscarves around her daughter's head, trying to hide the pain beneath soft fabric and warm embraces. But Amina still flinched when she saw scissors in the house. Still cried in the middle of brushing her teeth. Still refused to look in the mirror. Lydia tried everything, songs, warm dinners, silly jokes she used to tell when Amina was little, but none of it broke through the sadness. On the 3rd day, there was a knock on the door. Lydia opened it and froze. "Mr. Hayes," she gasped. "What are you, how?" He held a small, warm smile. "May I come in?" Lydia hesitated, nervous, embarrassed about the 1-bedroom apartment, the peeling wallpaper, the hum of the old refrigerator, but she stepped aside. "Of course." When he entered, Amina peeked from behind the hallway, wearing a yellow hoodie pulled over her head. She saw him, and her face lit up in a tiny, hopeful way. "Damon," she whispered. His chest tightened. She said his name like he was someone familiar. Someone trusted. "Hello, Amina." She stepped out slowly. Her hoodie slipped a little, revealing the uneven patches beneath. She quickly tugged it back down, cheeks burning. Damon pretended not to notice. I brought something for you. She blinked. For me. He nodded and handed her a small white box tied with a soft ribbon. Lydia looked between them, shocked. Amina opened it with delicate fingers. Inside was a note. This is a journey we will walk together. You are not alone. Damon. Below it was a voucher, one that made Lydia gasp aloud. A full treatment plan with a hair restoration and protective styling specialist, including scalp therapy, growth treatments, protective style fitting, follow-up care, and custom hairpieces made especially for young girls recovering from trauma. Lydia covered her mouth. Mr. Hayes, this is too much. It's not enough, Damon said. Nothing could undo what she went through. But I want her to feel whole again. Amina whispered, You did this for me? Yes. Why? Because you matter. Her eyes shimmered. And for the first time since that horrible bus ride, she cried without fear. Not hurt tears. Not scared tears. Healing tears. The salon was warm and bright, filled with gentle music and women with kind smiles. Amina clutched Damon's sleeve again as they walked in, just like she did the first day. A stylist named Renee knelt to Amina's level. Hi beautiful, she said softly. We're going to take very good care of you today. Amina's shy smile returned. Damon stayed nearby the entire appointment, not hovering, not intruding, just present. Renee washed Amina's hair gently, speaking to her like she was royalty. This scalp is strong, she said. It's healing already. Amina's shoulders relaxed. After the wash, they gave her a warm steam treatment. Then they carefully trimmed and shaped the remaining hair into a style that felt intentional, not a patchwork of pain. Amina touched her hair in the mirror, eyes widening. I look pretty. You look powerful, Damon corrected. Renee added softly, You look like yourself. Amina's smile grew. Lydia cried quietly in the corner. Some nights were still hard. Amina would wake up crying, clutching her head, whispering, Stop, please stop. Lydia held her tightly, tears falling into her daughter's curls. One night, Amina called Damon at midnight. I'm sorry, she said, voice trembling. I didn't mean to bother you. You did not bother me, he said instantly. I'm here. What if they do it again, she whispered. They won't, he said firmly. Not ever. Promise. With everything in me. Weeks passed. Her hair began to fill in. Her confidence returned piece by piece. Her laughter, soft at first, grew brighter. One afternoon, she showed Damon a drawing she made. It was a little girl under a big oak tree, sitting between her mother and a tall man. Is that me? Damon asked softly. Amina nodded. You make me feel safe. Damon swallowed hard. You make me feel needed. Amina blinked. Is that good? Damon nodded gently. It's very good. While Amina healed, Damon made sure the school didn't forget. He attended board meetings. Challenged policies. Pushed for bullying reform. Hair discrimination training. Increased adult supervision. Mental health support. Anti-racism curriculum additions. A zero-tolerance enforcement for violence against vulnerable students. He used his wealth not to intimidate, but to illuminate. The superintendent said, Mr. Hayes, we've never seen someone fight this hard for a child who isn't theirs. Damon replied quietly, She is not mine by blood. But she is mine to protect. 3 months after the incident, Amina stepped out of Renee's salon with her new style, twists neatly tied with soft gold beads, her scalp fully healed, her hair finally even again. She twirled once. Mama, look. Lydia smiled through tears. You're beautiful, baby. Amina turned to Damon. What do you think? Damon felt his heart swell with something warm, something unfamiliar, something deep. I think, he said slowly, you look like the strongest girl I've ever met. Amina ran into his arms, no hesitation, no fear. Lydia watched them, her heart full. Because healing had become more than hair. More than therapy. More than growth. Amina had found someone who saw her. Damon had found someone who softened him. And together, they found something that felt like family. The sun hung low in the late afternoon sky, warm and soft, casting golden light across the small neighborhood park. Children played on the swings, mothers chatted under shaded benches, and a quiet breeze rustled through the leaves overhead. Amina and Damon sat together beneath the same oak tree where their lives first connected, the very tree where she had cried into her sleeves, broken and afraid. Today, she wasn't hiding. Today, she wasn't trembling. Today, she looked whole. Her hair, newly styled in twists with gold beads, shimmered in the sunlight. She wore a soft smile, one Damon had learned to treasure. Lydia stood nearby on a bench, talking to another parent, giving them a moment alone. Amina kicked her feet gently, looking up at Damon shyly. You know something? What's that? Damon asked. You kept your promise. He smiled, a slow, full smile that softened the edges of his usually sharp demeanor. I told you I would. Amina nodded. You did more than that. You stayed. You helped Mama. You helped me. You made me feel like I matter. You do matter, Amina, Damon said quietly. More than you know. She looked at her hands for a moment. Then, with a seriousness Damon rarely saw in someone so young, she said. I want to give you something. He blinked, surprised. Give me something. She nodded. Yeah. Something special. Something of mine. She reached into the little brown satchel she carried everywhere now, the one Damon had given her during one of her appointments, and pulled out a tiny object wrapped in tissue. She held it out reluctantly, like she was handing him something priceless. Damon took it gently. May I open it? Amina nodded. He unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a golden bead, one of the spare beads Renee had given her for her new hairstyle. It glowed softly in his palm. Damon looked at it with reverence. Amina, this is beautiful. She looked up at him with big, earnest eyes. Renee said these beads remind girls of how precious their hair is. And that every bead is like a little piece of strength. She paused, breath trembling with meaning. So. I want you to have one of mine. Because you gave me strength. Something in Damon's chest cracked open. He had spent his entire adult life giving money, resources, opportunities, but no one had ever given him something so small, yet so meaningful. Thank you, he said, his voice quieter than he intended. This means more to me than anything I own. Amina blushed, smiling shyly. Now you have a piece of my strength. So if you ever feel sad, you won't be alone. Damon closed his fingers around the bead, holding it tight. Then, with a breath, he reached into his coat pocket. There's something I want to give you too, he said. Amina tilted her head curiously. He pulled out a small wooden object, polished, smooth, carved with delicate patterns. A handcrafted wooden comb. Amina's eyes widened. It's so pretty. Damon's voice grew soft. My mother gave me this when I was your age. She told me a comb is more than something you use. It's a symbol. Of identity. Of where you come from. Of remembering who you are. He placed it gently in her palm. And I want you to have it now. Amina held it like a treasure. For me. For you, Damon said. Because your identity is beautiful. And no matter who tries to take from you, your crown will always be yours. Amina leaned forward and hugged him. Arms tight around his waist, face pressed into his coat. Thank you, she whispered. Damon closed his eyes and rested a hand on her back. You're welcome, Amina. The golden bead glowed softly in his fist. The wooden comb rested warm in hers. 2 symbols. 2 hearts. 1 bond. The weeks that followed were gentle ones, slow, warm, full of new routines that knitted themselves into the quiet fabric of Amina's life. Every Friday afternoon, Damon picked her up from school. Not as a billionaire swooping in, not as a savior, but simply as someone who cared. Someone who showed up. Someone who kept showing up. He always greeted her with the same question. How was your heart today? And Amina, smile growing more confident each week, would answer honestly, something she'd never been able to do with any adult before. Sometimes she'd say, happy. Sometimes, a little tired. Sometimes, stronger. But never again did she say, invisible. Because she wasn't. Not anymore. On one particular Friday, Damon arrived to see Amina standing tall outside her classroom, yellow dress fluttering in the breeze, gold beads glinting in her twists, her wooden comb tucked proudly into her satchel. Her teacher spoke quietly with Lydia nearby, both smiling. Amina looked up at Damon and waved with both hands, bouncing on her toes. Mama said I can show you something, she announced breathlessly as he approached. Damon raised an eyebrow playfully. Oh. What is it? She reached into her backpack and pulled out a sheet of paper, carefully folded, edges neat. She handed it to him, eyes shining. He unfolded it gently. It was a certificate with her name written in big bold letters. Amina Daniels, recipient of the Courage Award. Damon stared at it for a long moment. Then he looked at her. Amina bit her lip nervously. Do you like it? Amina, Damon said softly, I love it. She giggled and clutched his sleeve. I got it because I talked about bullying in class today. I told them it's okay to ask for help. And that being different is not bad. Lydia stepped closer, a proud smile on her face. She stood in front of the whole room, Mr. Hayes. 12 students. She even talked about hair. Amina added quickly, not everything. Just, the part where I learned I'm still beautiful. Damon felt something swirl in his chest, warm, full. You're more than beautiful, he said. You're brave. Amina blushed, looking down at her shoes. Only because I had help. That afternoon, the 3 of them walked to the oak tree one last time, Amina leading, Lydia and Damon following. This is where everything changed, Amina said, tapping the trunk lightly. This is where I stopped feeling broken. Lydia brushed Amina's shoulder tenderly. You healed, baby. Little by little. Damon nodded. And you grew stronger than most adults I know. Amina slipped her small hand into his. Will you keep being in my life? The question was innocent. Pure. Hopeful. And Damon didn't hesitate. Yes, he said. As long as you want me. Amina smiled, soft, genuine. Then forever. Lydia looked at Damon with gratitude in her eyes, gratitude for what he'd done, but also for who he'd become to her daughter. Not a billionaire. Not a celebrity. Not a man in a fancy car. But a protector. A mentor. A piece of family they didn't know they needed. As the sun dipped lower, casting warm light across the park, Amina pulled something from her satchel, the wooden comb. She held it up proudly. I take this with me everywhere, she said. It reminds me that my story didn't end on that bus. Damon nodded, emotion thick in his voice. No, it didn't. It started here, she finished. They stood together, 3 people bound not by blood, but by healing, courage, and unexpected connection. And as the breeze swayed the branches above them, Amina squeezed both their hands and whispered, "Next year, when my hair is longer, can we take a picture right here? So we remember how far we came." Damon smiled. Lydia nodded. "Yes," he said. "We will." Amina leaned her head against his arm, her voice soft. "And that's a promise, right?" Damon looked down at her, this little girl who had walked through fire and come out glowing. "It's a promise," he said. "A forever promise." And beneath the oak tree where pain once lived, something new took root. Hope. Strength. Family. A new beginning, with a future bright and unbroken.